All right, REDX community, with another episode of the Stability and Opportunity podcast. I'm Justin Zimmerman, Director of Content here, with another special guest that's going to help us discover what to say and what to do during these uncertain times. And the purpose of this podcast and this series to help uncover the game plans, the things you need to know and do to become more virtually valuable as our access to the normal ways we do business become less able to be done. And over the last couple of days, we've had some really great episodes where we're starting to uncover tactics that you can take away right now from these videos to go do something that's valuable to yourself and your business. As one example, yesterday with Juan Romero in his episode, he was actually out and about coming from appointments, and he talked about how he's calling vacant property owners to get listings with them because the risk of contamination, the concerns about a seller aren't there because the properties are vacant. So that's how he's getting listing appointments. So I hope to share with you in this episode with Bernice Ross, who is the owner of realestatecoach.com, one of the pioneers in the industry of doing things online. She's helped thousands of agents with their businesses going from the traditional way to the virtual way of doing business. She was an agent in the 80s and 90s in Beverly Hills, and she's going to tell you about how many, let's say, billions of dollars that she sold at
Not
that
me,
time.
it was the company I worked for. I wish it were me.
Yeah, well, yeah, you helped them sell. And
So I ran the training for them.
she ran the training for them. And so she has just so much information, so many approaches that we can go into, talk about today that can help you no matter where you are. And so we want to be able to, by the end of this episode, help you understand how to set appointments, how to get deals, how to write offers, how to do things under these circumstances. And so I welcome Bernice Ross to today's episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I have been a fan of REDX for the last 15 or 16 years, ever since you started, because in my opinion, and there's some other competitors out there, there's nothing else that touches this platform in terms of doing, scrubbing the list, providing you with tools for, the triple dialer, all the things that you can do with the REDX tools. To me, one of the biggest things that you have just released is your Vortex system. And the fact that, say, I have a listing now, and I don't even have to, I don't have to be calling on FSBOs and expires. I have a listing, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know this like you do, because I haven't used it, but I know about it because I've talked to agents who have. And I can actually draw, I can say, okay, I want 100 names or 200 names around my listing. And then you're going to scrub those numbers, which ones I can call, and then which ones in this, given environment that maybe I need to be contacting by mail, information about, some people are still having to move, or they want to, you want to provide, do you know someone who needs to buy a house in this area at this point in time? And maybe, there's some people out there who sold their homes and, they're homeless now, they're between properties and they're looking for a place. So it's kind of coming from that point of service. But did I describe Vortex correctly?
That's actually, so yes, we have something called Geo Leads that when you're inside the Vortex platform, if that's something that you're paying for and using, that it will show up in there. And so I just also want to say, I love how everybody comes on here and says great things about REDX. And I just want to let everybody know who's listening, I don't ask them to say that. There's no like, hey, in the beginning, will you give some sort of plug? And so every time you hear something about it, I have no expectation, and there's actually no prompt for that being said. But I do actually, we build products that help agents accomplish things that they would have a difficult time to do on their own. And one of the things that I would like to illuminate during these calls is that to understand tactics that if they do tie back to our products and services, to make sure that they know how to use those things in these times. And so GeoLeads would be one of those services that, for instance, like yesterday, Juan, who was on the show, was talking about, well, why don't you just go listen to the news, make yourself of service, and then talk about the mortgage rates, because people are hearing how the federal funds rate has dropped to zero, but that doesn't necessarily mean the mortgage rate has dropped to zero. Now, all of a sudden, you could do just sold style prospecting from a value perspective. And I didn't mention it then, but you could use our GeoLeads product to drop a pin on an area that you want to farm. And maybe no one's really interested in buying or selling right now, but at least you can put your name in front of those people with valuable information. And so that would be one of those instances where if we did want to talk about how to use our products to leverage these markets, that would come into play. But the whole point of this is really to give tactics. And if our products come into play, that's a secondary thing. Just want to make that clear for everybody.
Well, forgive me for going on a little bit more on the infomercial. I have believed in the REDX products so much that it's incorporated in every one of my online trainings that, we've got new agent training, experienced agent training. It's all 24/7 online. We've been in that environment for the last 8 or 9 years, and REDX has been a pivotal part of the prospecting unit, prospecting and marketing, and especially this ability to do the geo leads. That to me is huge, over and beyond being able just to do the, not everybody wants to call for sale by owners and expires, but this tool alone is well worth it to me in terms of what that value that brings in terms of how I'm able to grow my business. I'm not a door knocker, never have been. It wasn't hiking around the hills in my 3-inch heels, not happening. But
that'd be funny to see. Every Hills Cup.
But the connection is what matters.
Can I ask you a question, Bernice?
Sure.
You mentioned before the show how you've been running a survey throughout the nation right now, whether that's through your own contacts or through Inman, and I don't think it really matters.
What I did is I went up on the Inman Coast to Coast site and on Facebook, and I just asked them what's happening out there. And boy, did I get some really interesting feedback. I think I was expecting to see more of a market decline, and what I heard back, some areas, Silicon Valley, San Francisco Bay Area, they're going like gangbusters. It's like
if you could
got more properties coming on
the
than
audience to hear really positive perspectives.
Yes. So, their markets are good. And then almost everywhere else that reported said, we've seen a slowdown, but not a stall. People are kind of trying to work through, but there's also been a rush to get properties closed or to get properties under contract, because I think people are maybe thinking this could be a longer period. If I want to have my kids in school next year in a certain area, or they know that they need to move, or there's something going on where they need to take action, and there's always something, their deaths, their marriages, their children, those things don't go away. So some people have to move, and they are moving. But right now, even with the lockdown in the Bay Area, which has been in place now for at least a week, it's kind of business as usual, which came as a very big surprise to me.
Talk about that, because you do some work with Greg McDaniel over at Real Estate Uncensored. He's a fan of REDX. We're a fan of his. And I know that he's kind of always out there trying and testing new ideas and things, or adapting what traditionally works into kind of unorthodox approaches. And so could you share some of the things that you've been learning, or you guys have been talking about together, that he's using to be successful even under those lockdown conditions?
Well, Greg went yesterday. He was on fire, because what happened, and this video will be linked up on Inman next Wednesday with my article. But he went through his different strategies. And one of the things he said he was seeing in San Francisco is that you're not supposed to be doing open houses. But then he pulled up the Zillow map, open houses scheduled for Sunday. It looked like business as usual. And a lot of agents are using the phrase, open house by appointment, which I hadn't thought about before, but it means you make an appointment. It's not open to the public. It is, online, and said it's posted on Zillow. And I don't know if that's going to change with the governor's order yesterday, but San Francisco was already under lockdown. So this is what was, what he found for this coming Sunday. And it looked like a normal open house map, but there was a lot of, shown by appointment. So what that does, that limits the possibility. The thing I love too is you're talking about your guest, about listing houses that are vacant, because there's no worried about there being a virus in those houses. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, I think we got to look at things, similar things, a different way, right? That's just a shift in perspective. And I think I want to just spend a couple of seconds talking about what you just said, which is people see the word open house. Let's say agents see the word open house, and there's a lot of places that you can go and syndicate and post, I'm having an open house. And if you didn't look at it differently the way you just described it, then you would then miss out on the traffic of people who are still interested, right? There are deaths, divorces. There are always going to be people who want to move, want to sell, and the access or advertising to those people's eyeballs is still, they're still going to go pursue that stuff. And so what's interesting about what you just said is, if we translate it, open house by appointment is really just another way of getting a showing, right? And so if you could change the word open house to, register to see this house, right? It's almost just an appointment setting concept as opposed to just being totally open.
Yeah, I think the tweak that, it's a little bit of a twist because the public isn't used to seeing open house by appointment. So, and to me, if I'm a consumer looking at this, well, that makes me feel more secure because I'm not getting, people who are just looking aren't going to be there. Someone's not going to set an appointment to see a house in this environment unless they're pretty much interested. Greg has a client right now who is, she sold her house. She's got $2 million in cash from her sale and she's homeless. So she is actively looking for properties right now. And one of the tactics he was using is he had called back a number of people where, they had submitted a couple offers, there were multiple offers. He's called people back where there have been multiple offers. Most of the people are hanging in there so far. He hasn't found anybody that, say no, if the offer fell apart. Some of them have backups. But on the other hand, as the transactions progress, those things can happen. So it makes sense if you've had clients who put an offer on the property, call back, see if that property's sold. Maybe time to circle back and see if they want to create another offer. You can also, one of the things I've trained for many years and Greg has been using, and this is a really great prospecting tip. You mentioned the agent who was with the vacant houses. Well, I've trained, when we were doing marketing and training, you can go to the public records. If somebody has a house for lease, and it's expired, lease expires, and that happens in the higher price ranges. That doesn't always get in the multiple listing services on the lower price ranges. But that particular approach where you look for properties that are, the ownership is out of state or out of area, so they're not living in the property essentially. So you want something that's non-owner occupied. And when you find those people, there's a high probability that they own more than one property. And that they may be very interested right now in getting out of the rental market and actually selling and pulling their money out. And that's a
really super poignant point, because if you look at one of the reasons why people want to sell is cost of carrying the property. And there are a lot of people in our research, especially around FRBOs and vacant rental properties, is that one of the reasons why people even decide to list under normal circumstances is around the frustration of finding tenants, keeping tenants, managing tenants, and that they get into the rental game and it's a percentage, it's not the entire percentage. And so I would say under even more, they're scrutinizing that even more now, given the fact that there is going to be probably even less traffic to those properties and opportunities to rent them.
Well, I love the term FRBO, F-R-B-O. Haven't heard that one. For rent by owner.
Yep. Yeah, Google it. You'll see what comes up.
But to that point, there are two issues right now for people who own rental properties. And I was talking to Alan Dalton recently. He's the CEO of Real Living. And he was saying, what are the people, the mom and pops, but he owns rental properties, a lot of other people. What are the mom and pop investors in particular going to do when their tenants lose their job or they get sick from COVID-19 and they can't pay their rent? And then you look at these people who own properties, oftentimes they may own another business. What happens if their business is, this goes on for a while and their business is not one of the ones that has to be open? You look at people who own stores, restaurants, all these people are business people. They may have to sell property to be able to keep, what happens when we can't,
Free
this
cash
happened
flow.
in previous downturns, it's like people mortgage their houses to run their business. And, and if they can't do that, sometimes they have to sell in order to keep their business going.
Yeah, and I think you're setting up the opportunity side of this, which is why we've named this the stability and opportunity. Is as people stabilize, they find opportunity. Now we don't want that to happen. That is kind of the next wait and see moment. I think we're all in right now. If you listen to CNBC, they're all looking at things. Okay, what happens if that becomes the reality, and people stop being able to afford and pay for things, and in chaos, the yin yang symbol is kind of all about, like, in every chaos, there's opportunity, and every opportunity is chaos. And
well, let me interject some really
Yeah.
good news right now.
Yeah.
I mean, some really excellent news. Two studies. President Trump yesterday was talking about the treatment for malaria is chloroquine or something. I don't remember the name. Yeah, it's not quinine, it's chloral something, but it is used for the prevention of malaria or for the treatment. Not certain where it is. I heard that Bayer, which is one of the manufacturers, donated 3 million doses yesterday. But what's interesting about this, there was a peer-reviewed study out of France that was released yesterday morning. And this is, it was published, I don't know if it was Lancet, it was one of the big medical journals that made all the criteria, and the experimental group, and it was a small study, there were 40 people in it, but everybody in the experimental group that got the drug got well. They kicked it. Second thing that came out, and I just read this in the last hour, there was somebody who was a meteorologist of all things who noted the pattern of where the COVID virus is, and what they found is there's a correlation and I taught stats, so forgive me for going into some statistical terms, but essentially there was a relationship between, there were virtually no outbreak in the countries where they had malaria. And the reason is that drug is there. So this may be, Trump is fast tracking this to get this out to the public as soon as possible. And this may be just such a great gift in the sense that if there's something that's a treatment, we may not be able to stop it, but if we can treat it, then we can get our lives back to normal. I mean, this is huge.
And I think that plays right into the point of what we're trying to accomplish here today is, regardless of the circumstances, meaning circumstances continue to go down this path, or circumstances will all of a sudden, surprisingly, the black swan inside the black swan of events, right? Some sort of miracle movement happens with a drug or an approval. We don't know, but for the agents who are watching this and their mindset, they should just be thinking, how can I be of value and service under these conditions? And so if all of a sudden tomorrow everything gets great, they were the person who showed up in uncertain times with a voice of calm, with a voice of value, being the person that when the demand that's being pent up right now starts to get released, they have those relationships, they have those contacts, they have those email addresses, they have their vortex filled with the leads dispositioned correctly to respond to this, which probably is a cool idea for us to really think about, maybe helping our customers create some sort of filter or folder campaign, which is a side note around this, so that way they can track this scenario and have the right message for them as it unfolds. Or things do continue to go under lockdown and that pent-up demand is further out into the future. They've been doing the right thing all along. So that way, like we know, sphere of influence, this is a sphere of influence game we're playing right now. Even if you're calling expires, even if you're calling FSBOs, turn those people into your sphere of influence. And I think the scenario you just described helped paint both sides of the coin to give the agents the opportunity to know the right thing to do right now is not to panic, but we'll call it prospect.
Well, let me share, first of all, this is what we're facing right now. Okay, I assume that I'm under lockdown. I'm in the age group where I need to pay attention to this. That's it. But and I live in a 55 plus community, so I have a lot of neighbors who are older, who have health problems, so forth and so on. Having said that, What we need to be looking at here, though, is how can we be of service to the people in our communities in a way that's different than I need. I want to sell real estate. People joke about commission breath. I think this is the kiss of death. If you go after business with the idea, I'm going to capitalize on, whatever weakness is in the market. Instead, everyone I've talked to who has weathered things, you want to come from service. And let me give you an idea. This is an inconvenience right now for us. I was in LA for the 1994 earthquake, where I had no electricity, water, or gas for about 4 days. And we were lucky because there were, the college where I was teaching at, $60 million in damage in 1994, 1994 money. We would have had students dead on campus. We were closed down, the industry was closed down. And, you look at the flooding that took place earlier this year, you look at hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, where there's this devastation. And what happens when we see these? We had that horrible flooding in Houston a couple of years ago. What we see is that people generally band together to support each other. Mm-hmm. You want to be that person who help brings your community together. And let me give you an example from Tiffany McQuaid. She's a broker owner in Naples. And when Irma went through, it went right, that Hurricane Irma, which was a Cat 5, it went right over her house, in fact. And what she did after that, she was a clearinghouse to get messages out about the community. So you can use your Facebook business page right now, set that up as a community page, and then start posting the good news about what's going on. And when you've got something, you see that there's, the Trump administration has said they're going to issue checks of X. This came out this morning. Check the news. Put the positive things out there because people have so much stress right now. And I want to talk about the
Bernice,
cost of that first.
I don't want us to miss this opportunity right now. I think that is a super strong tactic. And so do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Absolutely delighted to do so.
So let's say you live in a 55-year-old community, kind of the demographic to some degree, right? If you were to go back into real estate today, right, that would sound like a crazy idea. If you had to start,
it's on my mind constantly. I think, I can make so much more money selling real estate.
If you had to get back into real estate right now, today being your first day, freshly licensed, knowing what you know, which is quite an advantage. Let's apply the tactic that you just mentioned. Walk us through setting up that Facebook page. What news sources would you write? Who would you contact? How would you call them? What would that sound like? And then what would the experience on that Facebook business page look like? And so that way, everybody listening to this right now can say, oh, I get it. Put us in that shoe, put us in that environment.
Well, first of all, and I teach this in training. So this is, you want to set up, when you set up your Facebook business page, one of the ideal ways to do this is by setting it up for the community. So it could be a specific zip code, the community I could reference that, and it would be all about the lifestyle here. And this is semi-normal, normal things are happening. So I might, say, okay, who's got the best burger in town? Or, where's the best farmer's market to go to? There's an upcoming party. The board of directors here is doing, X, Y, Z. I could go to my city hall, the normal city council meetings to see what's happening there and report on that. We're in an election year. I can report on, some of the initiatives or local events that are happening that we're going to be voting on. The city of Lakeway, where I live, they spent a truckload of money. I mean, it was, I don't know, 20 million. They did a bond here. It passed by 8 votes to build a new police station. 8 votes. So what that means is, people are looking for those kinds of information. So, and the approach I like to use is give to get marketing. And this will work across multiple platforms. So your Facebook business page can be by community, or if you have a big subdivision like I'm in, then I can dedicate it to that specific subdivision. So I've got pictures of it. I've got a lot of things about the lifestyle. I might be interviewing people in my community about, we had a Valentine's Day party here for the ladies. The men served us. It was lovely. And, absolutely beautiful. They had the members of the baseball team at our local high school here came over and spoke to us about what they were doing. And they were raising, they were essentially trying to get, more boosters, from our community to their games and making it more of a community event.
Yeah.
But, that's something I could write about. I could have interviewed the baseball coach about it because he spoke, and maybe talked to a couple of the players.
Yeah. I've
So
got
it's
some
really,
tactical questions when you have a
it's just like really getting stuff in the community. And then what about businesses? There's a new restaurant. Hey, go interview that owner. Or maybe there's a new yoga studio, or there's a place that's a new dress shop, and boy, do they have the most beautiful shoes you've ever seen. It's just, you can have, it's those kinds of things and those resources that are about the lifestyle. And a good ratio is about 90 to 95% is about the community and other people, and 5 to 10%, no more than 10% is about you.
You've given me ideas. I love this. I'm about to break into what I love best about these interviews right now is that we get to create parts of the playbook every single day. And so just to reiterate, because I'm going to jump into what you're saying, I just want to set the frame up real quick, is that every single one of these episodes, our team is listening for really high valuable stuff that we can then translate into a playbook that we're creating, that way in the next couple of days, we'll have something to share back. And so what I just took from you for this, how to become virtually valuable, doing the things that we used to do, but now virtually, is that before you could go to the restaurant, you could go to the yoga studio, you could go in person to those places, sit down, have the face-to-face, have the interview, talk about the business, give them an idea. Again, your audience at home, meaning your neighborhood of people that you serve as a real estate agent, in your case, this particular subdivision, you would go out and interview all these people. Now, you can't do that right now, or you shouldn't do that.
Oh, yes, I can, but I don't have to go out to do it.
That's what I'm about to say, is how to do that virtually, right? And that way, when the yoga studio opens and the restaurant reopens and all these other businesses reopen, you've built partnerships with those people at some point in time, not even knowing it. You've created a virtuous loop, a give to get approach, that then those people say, hey, during those hard times, she helped me get in front of my next pent up demand group of customers. Now, the angle on that, which I'd like to break down next, is, the virtual interviews, right? What would you say? How would you position it? How would you get people to even watch it? And I have some ideas using geo leads to kind of call around in the neighborhood and say, hey, I know you're probably sitting at home, wondering what's up. I've got, ABC person at XYZ yoga studio. Maybe they'll do a free home, yoga class, right? Broadcast
They put their yoga classes online. Here's the link.
Yeah, and so they're going to offer a free yoga class or maybe a $1 donation, just trying to come up with ideas to help the business, help the people, stay busy, stay engaged. And then you become the market maker for that type of transaction, that type of experience. I think maybe that's the right word that we're looking for here, is how can you create experience for people right now amidst all of this other stuff, while the experiences that they want to have are kind of delayed into the future?
Well, for me, the best platform for doing that right now, and the woman who runs my company has represented a lot of other people who do the kind of business that we do, or a lot of authors as well. And she's a member of the virtual assistant community. She's been running our company for 20 years, essentially. And she does it virtually. She's in Florida. I see her once a year at our conference. But we all agree, and Greg agreed with me on this too, the best platform for doing this as an agent right now is Zoom. That's zoom.us. I have a free version. I pay for the professional version. It's $15 a month. And, we're on a platform right now that is very similar with the Zoom. You go take the training. It won't take you very long. It's not that hard to learn. You just need to do a little bit of training on it. And then you can interview people. So all you do to do a Zoom interview, I would email you a link, click on the link. They need to have a video camera. It can be their phone. It's better if there's probably their computer. They can, and most people don't have a professional mic. Their ear pods from their phone work just fine. those things are, they've got, the quality, especially if you've got Apple products, the quality is excellent that comes across those. And you notice a lot of the people that are on TV that are being interviewed, a lot of doctors, they've got their earpods in. So that's perfectly acceptable. Have that person put their earpods in, and they just need the video feed. You can do it from your phone. It's not as good. It's better if it's from a laptop. But, on the other hand, the quality from the phone is great. It's just you have to figure out where you're going to put it. It needs a little tripod, and you get one of those for $15. So online. I don't know if Amazon's delivering those right now, but they're doing essential things. But I'm certain other retailers online who'll be happy to deliver those, Best Buy or someone like that.
That's great. Yeah, I'd like to add to that list. So if you compare options, one thing that we use before this platform we have here, which is probably overkill for most agents' needs, is Blue Jeans, which is the system that Greg and Matt Johnson use on their podcast, which allows you to simulcast to your Facebook group. And so I think that would be a nice, I don't know if Zoom does that. If Zoom does that as well, then, that just helps you compare. But I thought from a tactical approach, this is what I would do. I would test this as an idea, which is I would jump on GeoLeads, drop pins on all the houses in my neighborhoods, get on the dialer, call and leave voice messages that are just really saying, hey, what's up? Just checking in, letting you know that I'm putting together, kind of like we've done here. Here's an agenda of people that we're interviewing to keep the connections, the ideas flowing. I'm interviewing the chef at such and such place for some restaurant ideas. He's going to do a live show with us, how to cook something, right? Or
here's what they're serving at their restaurant right now that you can take out.
Or you can take out, right? And
yeah, boy, I tell you what.
They'll take their little camera and hold it up to the food, and then everybody in your neighborhood, right? They're offering like a $5 coupon or something right now. And so how can you help that business get business while putting yourself at the center? And then at the end, you can make a kind of a song and say, hey, tough time if you're thinking about buying or selling real estate. Under these conditions, let's talk about, what challenges and opportunities are available to you. And then that kind of gives people a reason to call without being salesy.
Yeah, I wouldn't even go that far. I just would say, this is Bernice Ross. If there's any way I can support you during, or be of service to you, I've got great connections. If you need a plumber, if there's something that you need, please feel free to contact me. Make it something other than a pitch for your business. Instead, make it for your service and what you know. Because people don't want to hear that same pitch over and over again because it just comes off right there at the end. It's a commercial. So draw it back. And, and this is true, especially, when someone has lost, a family member. I just was disgusted when I saw this about a year and a half ago. Somebody was pitching, that you should chase after, ambulance chasing, essentially people who have had a death in the family. Why not capitalize on it? And where you want to come from is, you want to, be in contact with them. I'm so sorry for your loss. Do you need to have your house cleaned? Or can I send, a few, 3 or 4, a couple of dinners over for you over the next few weeks where you don't have to cook. So you're providing a service, and what you're doing is or do you need, getting your house clean? Do you need help with something else? Maybe getting your dog to the groomers. I mean, whatever it is that you can provide that's of service, then you're not coming after them for real estate. You're connecting with them as a human being who's trying to help them through a difficult time. Yeah. And that's where we are. And I do want to, there's something I definitely want to talk about mindset here in a moment, but I want to make sure that we covered this to your satisfaction, Justin.
Let's lay out kind of the table of contents now for kind of the rest of about half an hour we have left together. One, I think, like to wrap up with, let's say, the content experience approach of being of service, as you call it, give to get marketing, kind of wrap up with that. I think it's important for us because a lot of our audience are prospectors. They are looking at the low cost, no cost, low hanging fruit now business, expireds, FSBOs, FURBOs, as we're learning. to keep their doors open, to keep their revenues flowing in the event things continue or do get more challenging. And so, and then thirdly, mindset. And so why don't we start with mindset and then leave the tactical now business approach as the last part of our conversation today?
Absolutely. Well, this is not quite mindset, but it has everything to do with it. One of the dangers right now, and this happens anytime that there's, say that a family member gets diagnosed with terminal cancer, and what happens is your A team in your body is dealing with the stress there, the B team is running everything else, and you're prone when that person passes, become ill, or you're more prone during the time that you're going through this to have accidents and other kinds of things. What's going on in your body is there's a substance called cortisol, and cortisol is released for fight or flight, and it works really well. Along with adrenaline, it helps your veins go deeper into your away from the skin, so you're not as likely to bleed. Changes the distribution of your blood, more blood to your muscles, so you can run or fight. More blood to your brain in the sense that you're having to make quick judgments about how to respond. You're more alert. You've got all these. You've heard the stories of people who've lifted cars. That's the adrenaline. But with cortisol, it's meant for there's cortisol and adrenaline are meant for short-term responses. And there's a tremendous body of research that shows cortisol is linked. Long-term exposure to cortisol when you're constantly under stress, like we are now, that is linked to cancer and heart disease as a primary cause of it. So one of the things in terms of your mindset now, one of the most important things that you can do is to get yourself into, is to get yourself calmed down to the biggest extent possible. And that's turning off the news, listening, read about it. Don't listen to what's, when your body sees all, when you see something, all these ambulances and people that are sick, your body says that's happening right around you. It's like a horror movie. Your body
can't tell the difference between what you think and what you actually see.
Yeah, your body doesn't, your emotional part of your body just,
doesn't
the brain is saying up here, my, cerebral cortex is saying, oh, well, no, this is just a movie. And your body's system is entirely saying, your emotional system is like, no, this is real. It doesn't have words to make the distinction. It just has the feeling. So one of the things you need to do is to get yourself into a better mindset. So this is getting more sleep. We've been in some respects, we've been given the gift of time. Take more time to kind of get your life organized, to do the things that make you feel good. And I'm going to give you a couple of exercises. One of the things that can put, we know performance occurs when both sides of the two cerebral hemispheres of your brain are in synchrony. We know how to put your brain into synchrony really easily. Get your favorite song that makes you want to snap your fingers and dance. And you see, I'm snapping. What I'm doing right now is I'm training my brain to get into sync from what is the right rhythm for me. Yeah, exactly.
No, let's. I went to a Tony Robbins event.
We're having a good time.
I went to Tony Robbins event, and he has that whole thing programmed. He knows exactly what you're talking about, like how to prime yourself for the day before you get out there, because you operate healthier, better, faster, more effectively when your emotional state is at a peak state. And like there's ways you can snap your finger like you just did for us. You brought up the tempo, you got some movement going, and I'm sure everybody watching this right now is either laughing and saying this is the silliest thing I've ever seen, or this feels fantastic, regardless of which I feel better just by you moving.
Well, one of the things, here's something else now. And if I were doing this live, I'd have everybody stand up, look up the
Let's
ceiling.
Have everybody stand up who's watching this. Let's ask them to. Let's do it.
Okay, hey, look at wave your hands at the ceiling. Right. You got to look up. Look at the ceiling, though. Straight up the ceiling. Yeah.
Okay. I'm following you.
Okay. Now, okay. Wave your hands at the ceiling. Look up. Yeah, you're just smiling.
Right. Yeah, I
what's going on there, Justin. Okay. First of all, unless your mother was like, the mommy dearest mother from hell, when you reach up when you were a baby, your mother would pick you up
Hmm.
And so this is something comes from neurolinguistic programming. It is deeply embedded in
NLP.
us. We reach up like this, that this makes us feel good. And I want you to think about now when your favorite team, if wins or they score, it's like, you've got
Right.
your
It's a natural instinct. We're like, yeah.
yeah, it goes right up. And think about how many dances have our hands above our head at some point in time. So these are all anchored in our body as positive feelings, and you can tap into them just by moving your body. And then in terms of mindset, the most important thing, and this comes from Paul Pearsall, he passed away a few years ago. He was the leading expert in the world on heart transplant patients. He's written a lot of research, a lot of books. But he had cancer that was all through his body, and he was terminal. And I saw the pictures when he was in the hospital when he was 84 pounds. And I showed them at his seminar. And he got hooked with a Hawaiian kahuna who taught him about the healing power of aloha. And with that, he was able to become one of the survivors who, low survival rate on the cancer he had, but he was one of them. And he went around the world talking about the healing power of aloha, but what this really is, and this is again substantiated by his research and by numerous other people who've done brain and body and physiological research, is when you are happy, you generally don't get sick. When you laugh, your body releases beta endorphins. These are the front line protection in your immune system. Not everybody gets sick, because your immune systems may be strong or just maybe, but if you're happy and when you're laughing, every time you smile, you're giving your body a laugh, you're giving your body a shot of beta endorphin. But the other thing you're doing when you smile at someone else and they smile back at you, they have that, they get that little release of beta endorphin too. They feel good for just even a little bit. So one of the things you can do right now, smile, Pearsall, he used to joke, he says, you're better off having 100 great belly laughs, sit on the side, sit on the curb and watch the runners. Notice all of them look like they're unhappy. They're not laughing when they're running. Says it's healthier for you to sit on the curb. And he was saying that kind of a little bit jokingly, but the laughter part of this is really important. So watch funny things. Instead of looking at the videos on the news, read them in print. It's less emotional, and do it maybe twice a day. Check in the morning and night if you want to know what's going on, and then go about your day and bring, as much laughter and joy as you can to the people you come in contact with. If you've heard somebody was, you see a funny picture, you could post on your Facebook group, about COVID-19, about not touching your face. Well, there was one on Facebook where somebody had got the cone of shame from their veterinarian, and he was wearing it.
Yeah.
Hey, I can't touch my face that way, but something that makes people laugh, again, that's what really matters.
Yeah. I love what you just did for us. I think just changing the emotional state around things opens you up. And again, the point of this is creating stability and opportunity. And if your eyes are closed, your emotions are shut down, how can you possibly see the opportunity amongst the chaos? And I think I wrote this down. I don't know how far we can actually pursue it, but I thought if we had a morning dance off for everybody, again, if you've been to a Tony Robbins event, what happens in those events and how total strangers, you're just like, who are these weird people next to me? And then you're basically at a 5,000 person party, and you're like, all of a sudden you start to emotionalize possibility. As a tip for people, maybe just wake up in the morning. And one thing that we've actually done at our house, what's interesting is I have this saying in the house. I installed a pull-up bar, and in the morning, me and my family, we say we meet at the bar first thing in the morning. And what we end up doing is not pull-ups, but we actually put our hands up on the bar, and we just kind of let our our feet hang, and it opens up this whole part for us. And for me, I guess I'm tapping into the same thing that you're talking about is, you wake up feeling kind of sluggish and maybe a little bit anxious or concerned about the day. And for whatever reason, hanging out at the pull-up bar, a tip for how do you change your state, applying that way, it takes like 5 seconds. And all of a sudden, we're like, oh yeah, that feels really good.
Or again, listen to 5 minutes of your favorite, one of your favorite songs and kind of dance a little bit, and that a lot of people work out first thing in the morning, they're getting that beta endorphin, increase from that.
Yeah, we've got actually 2 resources on the REDX blog I can speak to on this. And before we shift into kind of the final tactics and tips for today, is we have, and we should probably get your opinion on this, is we have the 28 stress relieving tips for real estate agents. And so if you type that in, that will come up on Google. And then we also have a Spotify playlist blog. So those people who are our Spotify subscribers can go Google REDX Spotify, and there's a bunch of by person or movie that you're in. Have like maybe, I don't know, over a dozen different playlists on that page for agents to kind of wake up and get rocking with. And so thanks for bringing that.
I'll send you the link to this. I don't remember it's an unusual group's name, but they did a song that's been rated as the most relaxing song ever. And what they found with this, I was searching for.
That's a bold claim.
It's like Marconi something, I can't remember, but I'll send you the link. And in this particular, they've actually got it as a video. But what they found, I was searching for things that reduce cortisol. This thing lowers cortisol, but it also lowered anxiety by 65%, plus heart and blood pressure, which go up when you have cortisol. So this is, you can just listen to this thing for 4 minutes and I don't know if you get to Zen, but this is supposedly the best way to do it using music.
Yes. Send that over. I think
I will definitely do that.
Yeah. Okay. So we got about 15 minutes left for the little time that unfortunately we're coming close to ending on, but let's jump into tactics for agents whose mindset has been cold calling. What can they say and do right now to keep their businesses going, getting appointments, listings, writing offers? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? And what advice do you have for them?
Well, first of all, I'd listened to the video that we shot that'll be on Inman next Wednesday. And I could send you the link to the video separate from the Inman article when it publishes. But Greg had the actual scripts. I can't begin to touch his stuff. He does this every day. He's a master at it. So I'll make sure that your users, can listen to that because he's got it wired. But I want to do the thing that I believe in is something called Give to Get Marketing. And there's a wonderful book called The Go Giver by Bob Berg. And maybe there's another author with him. But anyway, it's B-U-R-G, Go Giver. And this is one of the best books I've ever read that really talks about service first as a way to get business. So let me give your users some ideas. One of the things that came up was somebody posted, had 20% with the stock market crash. Now he only has 6% down. Okay. So this is something you could post for anyone who may have been hit by the stock market who still wants to buy or sell a house, or who wants to buy a house. Here are a couple of resources. Did you know, there are 1%, if you qualify, there are 1% down programs out there. There's FHA, which is as low as percent. There are other kinds of programs. And then, if you need help with your down payment, like this particular person might, again, depending on the size and the location, the type of property, 84% of the properties in the U.S. qualify for down payment assistance. And there's a site called downpaymentresource.com. And write this down, everyone. This is really important. You're going to love what I'm going to say here. Downpaymentresource.com. And what they do is they aggregate all the down payment assistance programs for local areas across the U.S. And these programs are available to people like firefighters, teachers, military. Sometimes it can be a type of property. It can be based upon you might be a single woman. They have different types of programs available. It's what's provided locally. There's also federal and state programs as well. And it could be down payment assistance. Sometimes they're grants, actual money grants, where they give you cash. And the average amount of down payment assistance last year that they granted, the average amount was $13,000. Now, could that come in handy to almost anyone right now? And again, you got to qualify for it. But and the other thing that's really cool about this is you can layer different programs. So I'm a teacher. Assume that my husband was in the military and now he's in law enforcement. You know, we could hit a VA loan, we could hit the a military program, and I can hit one for being a teacher. So we could possibly have 3 different sources of down payment assistance. There was an agent who was doing this in Seattle that I heard about a couple of years ago, and she, you know, she's selling houses $750,000 to $1 million with down payment assistance by layering multiple, you know, loan programs together here. So that's a huge takeaway. It's like offer assistance, you know, in terms of what's out there. So letting them know, be a solution to their problems. Another thing, and this is my I've got 2 really good prospecting tips for your users here. Number 1, my best overall property prospecting tip is to do something called a equity checkup for people who are homeowners. If you are working with a buyer, it's you can say a proper, you know, you don't want to use equity checkup. That's not the right term, but you can say this is a market report, different from a CMA, which is what everybody do. You want to have them do a current market evaluation, not a CMA, but a current market evaluation. And the way you do this is the following: you take a picture of the either of the property or of the subdivision if it's a general area report, so it's current market evaluation. The next thing you do, you go to NARRPR.com. Again, that's the National Association of Realtors, Real Property Resource site. That's NARRPR.com. They have 15 to 25 pages of fantastic reports. Get a copy of that specifically if it's for an actual property. That's even better, but you can do the area one. And then there's another site that's free that's called HomeDisclosure.com, which has all kinds of things, including pictures of the actual sex offenders in the area, but it's got hazards, it's got information about the schools, demographics, all that. So now, other than a CMA, which they may not be interested in, I have information about the area that they're in, and I pull that together on a PDF. I meet somebody when I'm out prospecting, and they say, well, I'm thinking about buying a house in XYZ area. I said, would you like a current market evaluation for that area? Then you pull that up, you have it in a PDF, and you can text it to them if you're seeing them face to face, or if you meet them from your cold calling or prospecting from an online situation, you can send it also via PDF. Yeah. So either one of those works really, really well as a resource for you to, give to get. Because what happens is, and when I first heard about this from an agent in Arizona, she was doing this and she was finding that people were actually, they'd say, my sister would really like a copy, or my friend across the street would like a copy. Can you get me one for her too? And, so this is like a way to go viral. And the great time, if we have the kind of downturn they're talking about, we hope it's not going to happen, but if it does, what's going to happen? Values are going to go down. Property taxes, you can help them get their property taxes lowered. So this tool is a way to help them, determine if, at tax time, are they eligible for a lower property tax rate?
Yeah, I think you're speaking to, it doesn't really matter whether it's a Facebook business page dedicated to a neighborhood or a blog. I think it keeps coming back down to being a resource and speaking to both the present pain and future opportunities within that for the areas and people that you serve. And whether you're reaching out by phone, reaching out by mail, I don't know how many people will be door knocking these days, but being the bearer of facts and news that are of benefit to the people you serve, and however you can get a hold of that information and spread that information. Spread's probably not the best word to use right now, but hey, spread value, not germs. that could be the campaign. That I think that's what you've really brought to the forefront today for our audience.
Let me share my best tip for you for today. Okay. Because, I've been talking about being on Zoom and doing video. So when you take a listing, if you're taking it virtually, but when you take a listing, what you want to do is say, Justin, and you just listed your house. Do you mind? I want to take my phone out. Would you mind giving me a testimonial about what's great about living in this area?
That's great.
Okay. So you get that. Post that on Google, LinkedIn, or post it on your Facebook business page, any of those places. But then on YouTube. But then what happens is Google thinks that's a testimonial for you. Now, here's the second tip. Justin, do you know anybody else who would be willing to, do a testimonial for what's great about living in this area? And how many people do they know that are all over? Oh, yeah, can I get on Instagram or even on some of the other social platforms? It's like, oh, yeah, hey, I'm all over this. So, but the idea here is when you ask, if anyone else would be willing to give a testimonial for that area, you're getting a one-to-one introduction with that person.
That's fantastic. Yeah, there's probably more time that we can spend on that than we have available right now to jump into. So I'm just going to scratch a little bit of the surface to unpack a little bit of it, as I feel like, again, a lot of our agents, and translating this for our audience, a lot of our agents are prospectors. So the way they think is, I need a call and I need to speak to somebody and I need to say something. And I'm not going to speak for everybody because I know some markets are still hopping and happening. Other markets have down and people are under quarantine, if we want to call it that. And I think that depending on what situation or circumstances that you're in right now, taking what you just said, if you reach out to your network and ask for what's the best thing about a house that just got listed or just got or a neighborhood that a new home came on the market, a variation almost of the just listed, just sold script would be to call up neighbors and say, hey, I just listed this property. I've got a couple of videos from the owner about them talking about what's so great and fantastic about it. Would you mind somebody would be interested in hearing it? And then you become kind of the person who's sharing that information with, and then you ask for an email address. And I think under these circumstances, people are more open to being a part of something communal and connecting because we have isolation in front of us. And I feel like the barrier to know has gone down for things like this.
Well, again, this is hastening the movement to going online. I like to see, everybody presenting their offers on Zoom or on Skype because it gives you face-to-face. It's way more effective. But, learning to be in that face-to-face environment right now is probably the number one takeaway that you need for your business, regardless of how you prospect. And I want to reiterate something I said before. 5% about you and your business, 95% about the person. So I'm not plugging my listing. I might say, I'd have my owner talk about the, here's something, you can have, I say, one of my owners has something really unique, they have, and then you want to show that one little piece of that listing that's really different. You're looking for what's weird, funny, off the wall, that's what you're looking for. They don't want, people don't want to hear it's 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you've got another listing. There's something kind of strange and odd, or that's going to make them laugh. Right now, make them laugh needs to be, I think, our motto whenever we can.
That's, I think that's the next iteration on what I was saying. So I love that. So we are out of time for today's episode. I really appreciate you spending it with us, sharing your thoughts, ideas, giving us a glimpse of both the current reality and what possibly in the future that we should focus on and do. I'm Justin Zimmerman here at REDX. This is the Stability and Opportunity podcast series that we're diving into what works, what needs to happen in order for you to stay connected to your customers and business during these times. We have a lineup of other amazing speakers showing up starting next week, with Ricky Carruth being one of them. He's a very popular, if you haven't seen him yet, he's got stuff all over the internet, maybe one of the most popular and explosive coaches on social media and YouTube, in addition to Dirk Zeller, some other great speakers as well, Jason Morris, if you're part of his group. And so everyone, like you said, the communities of communities are coming together. These are people that we don't always work with, but because of the circumstances are saying, hey, we need to do everything we can to bring ideas, information, positivity, energy on a daily basis, which is what we're trying to do here with this podcast daily, to give you things that you can use to stay focused in business and positive. And so if you're not yet on the email list to receive daily updates when new shows go live, you go to the redx.com/blog. You'll see a little pop-up come up. Put your email in there. We'll send you updates as we get them. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, hit like and subscribe to get the notifications when we go live. And you'll stay in touch and informed as we put this out there. And so, again, Bernice, thank you so much for taking the time today. Thank you, everybody at REDX who's pulling together during these times. Everybody's working remote, and it's putting, I think, to the test in a good way. That's making us stronger, better, and I think more resilient than we did have coming into this. And so working on my little catch line exit here, but I think it's something like stay safe, stay calm, stay clean. See you next time. I'm Justin Zimmerman. Hope you all have a great rest of the day.